To go back to an issue that we discussed earlier in the program with Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma, and that is the Hyde Amendment. This legislative provision, it's an annual rider that for 50 years, has prohibited the use of federal funds on most abortions. In the 1990s, it was changed to allow for exceptions for rape and incest or to save the life of the mother. But this was a part of actually Henry Hyde, Republican Congressman from Illinois, actually introduced this 3 years after, it actually passed 3 years after Roe v. Wade was decided or imposed upon the nation by the court. And my next guest hasn't been in Congress those entire 50 years, but pretty close, having been in office since 1981. And throughout the time, he has been a stalwart defending the sanctity of human life, and as you will see, as he's been on the program many times, he has been an advocate for the persecuted. Congressman Chris Smith of New Jersey is going to be joining. He serves in several roles in the House, including serving as the co-chair of the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission and the co-chair of the Bipartisan Congressional Pro-Life Caucus. He represents the 4th Congressional District of New Jersey, and the House is just wrapping up a vote, so he's headed back to join us. But while we're waiting for him to join us, I want to bring in Quena Gonzalez, who is the director of our government affairs. Quena, thanks for joining us today here on Washington Watch.
I'm sorry I'm not Chris Smith, but 20 years ago I worked for him, and he was a veteran even then on this issue, Tony.
Well, he has advocated relentlessly for the unborn. And while we're waiting for him, I want to play this clip again from President Trump yesterday when he was talking to the Republicans about the Hyde Amendment and then I'm going to let you fill in, kind of give the context. Play that clip again, please.
Now, you have to be a little flexible on Hyde. You know that. You got to be a little flexible. You got to work something. You got to use ingenuity. You got to work. We're all big fans of everything, but you got to be flexible. You have to have flexibility.
All right, so give our viewers and listeners the context of those comments.
Sure. So, Tony, the president spoke for a little over, I believe, 2 hours to Republicans on the Hill, and he was really speaking to them about what he thinks it's going to take to have a successful year, right? We've just come back from Christmas. We just came back from the longest government shutdown ever when Democrats shut down the government. And so he was laying out any number of ideas that he thinks would be helpful for Republicans to really focus on, both legislatively and then as we get towards the end of the year, right? The open secret in Washington is it's an election year and everyone's running for re-election. And so this comment really caught a lot of people on the Hill and off the Hill by surprise, this idea of flexibility on Hyde, because Hyde has actually been, as you've alluded to earlier in the program, a bipartisan agreement that whatever your views of abortion, taxpayers should not be forced to pay for it. And as you said, it's been in place since 3 years after Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade is now overturned, but Hyde continues to be applied every year to the spending bills that move through Congress. And so the idea that suddenly this year, for some reason, not only must we abandon Hyde, but that Republicans should be complicit in that abandonment, or not abandonment, but compromise or flexibility, has really caught a lot of people off guard.
Quena, you know how this works here in Washington, D.C. So you make an exception this time. You say, all right, well, all right, we've got to solve this problem. Therefore, the Democrats don't want Hyde on this extension of subsidies, so we just got to, but just this time, we're just not going to do it. Republicans agree to that. They have broken a long-standing position on the sanctity of human life and the fact that taxpayers would not be forced to engage in funding abortions.
It is really remarkable. It's been in every party platform since Roe v. Wade until 2 years ago. And President Trump coming in, one of his first executive orders was mandating the extensive application of the Hyde principle across the government. He issued an executive order in his first month in office on enforcing the Hyde Amendment. So this is a remarkable moment we're in. You're right. compromise here on something seemingly small, maybe seemingly temporary, is really a red flag, because we don't want to be the party of compromise.
I think it's not just a red flag, it's a red line. I think it's one that we cannot cross. Quena, thanks so much for joining us. Congressman Chris Smith is now ready to join us, so I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to let the congressman come in. So, bye, Quena. All right, Congressman Chris Smith of New Jersey joins us now. He just ran off the House floor after casting a vote. Congressman Chris Smith, thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate you hustling back to the studio.
Well, thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. The vote is actually occurring on bringing up the discharge petition and the Obamacare subsidy continuation for 3 years. The actual debate on the bill will be tomorrow, but it's in my opinion, very unfortunate that a number of Republicans have voted to bring this up. It does not have the Hyde Amendment, as you've just pointed out in that last back and forth, and has not, Obamacare has not had the Hyde Amendment ever. Despite all the lies that were put out by Obama himself with his bogus executive order in 2010, saying that the Hyde will apply. It does not apply. In my state, Tony, you can't even get a policy under Obamacare that does not pay for abortion on demand. And we allow abortions right till birth in my state.
Congressman, you weren't on when we were talking about you served with Henry Hyde.
Yes.
You've been in Congress not 50 years, but close to about 40 years. You've served in Congress since 1981. This has been a bipartisan, accepted view that it's a moral issue, as Henry Hyde pointed out, that we should not force people to engage in something that many, many Americans see as immoral, and that is the taking of the life of the unborn.
Tony, you said it perfectly. Henry Hyde was a huge, amazing leader. In every debate, you wanted him to be the closer. He was so articulate. But he stood up for the unborn in 1976. Now it's the 50th anniversary of the Hyde Amendment. Clinton tried to get rid of it. Obama tried to get rid of it. Biden tried to get rid of it. It's really, but there was once a very strong bipartisan consensus. When I first got here in 1981, there were about 80 pro-life Democrats. Now they're down to 0 because they've been, it's the party of death, the Democratic Party. I say that with sadness. But the Hyde Amendment has saved something on the order of 2.6 million children who otherwise would have been killed through abortion, but the funding wasn't there to enable it. And I remember when Henry himself learned that about 1 million kids have been saved, and that's 1 million women who don't go through the agony of that irreversible decision and post-abortion syndrome. When he heard that, he had tears in his eyes. I'll never forget it. So, a great man, a great legacy, and we need to be firm and say no. I put it into H.R. 7 every year. It's passed the House 4 times. That says Obamacare will no longer subsidize abortion on demand. Passes the House, has not passed the Senate. It hasn't passed in this Congress yet. We need to grow our numbers so that we can get this protection, so at least the taxpayer is not complicit in dismembering and chemically poisoning babies.
Were any of your colleagues moved to reconsider their support for Hyde by the president's comments yesterday?
I don't think so. I think it caused some bewilderment, that we need to be flexible. What does that mean? The child who's about to be exterminated in a very painful way, especially through dismemberment, but even the child who's starved to death through the abortion pill. Almost nobody, you know it, I know it. It kills the baby by starving that little girl or little boy to death. We also know it's very dangerous to women based on the most recent data that came out last April. A complication rate of 11% when they advertise that it's less than 0.5%. So women are suffering, babies are suffering. No, we need to reassert our commitment to the most defenseless group of people on earth, unborn children, and I would say to their mothers. It's the biggest lie and deception ever that somehow killing a baby is pro-women. My wife is very pro-life. The women that make up the pro-life movement, and it primarily is led by women who are just amazing. And now, so we have to redouble our efforts to protect life.
You may have caught my conversation with Quena Gonzalez about you've been around long enough. You know what happens if an exception is made one time.
Yes.
If we say we've got to address this crisis in health care because these people are going to be losing their health care, and the Democrats won't vote for it unless it covers abortion. And so it's the Republicans who have to be flexible. They have to be the ones that, not flexible, basically throw their principles out the window. But if you do it one time, you'll do it a second time. And if you do it a second time, you'll do it a third time. And before you know it, we are funding abortions in this country wholesale.
No, there's no doubt about that concern. Luckily, the Health and Human Services and all the other, the Hyde Amendment, as it's embedded in there for Medicaid, federal Medicaid only, not state Medicaid, that's intact, and we'll fight.
That's an annual rider.
Fight.
And so
Exactly.
if Republicans cave on this, and I'm not suggesting they would, because you're right, I've talked to many of them, they're resolute, but the call by the president to abandon your principle on Obamacare, I believe will carry over into that annual rider.
Well, that's a very important point to make about potentiality of that outcome, because that would be horrible. We need to get abortion out of Obamacare. My bill, H.R. 7, no taxpayer funding for abortion, would make every one of the riders, and I did the rider on federal employees' health benefits program back in 1984. And that's intact, it's saved, but it's always at risk, just like the Hyde Amendment, so that we don't pay for it in the FEHB program. But Obamacare, there was so much lies and deception and subterfuge to get that passed. Even Obama put out an executive order in 2010. And when I've read it, I said, well, what's our problem? It says Obamacare is covered by Hyde. Biggest lie I have seen in 45 years as a member of Congress. But it convinced some of the pro-life Democrats to vote for it. But you're right, precedent becomes potentially habitual, and we don't want that. So we got to be very concerned about, we got to stand for these little babies and their moms.
So let's talk about, we just have a couple minutes left. Let's talk about the vote tomorrow. It's with a few Republicans joining with Democrats, it's going to pass. It's going to go over to the Senate. Probably nothing happened with it over in the Senate. But there is going to be some resolution, some way, somehow, to this crisis that's been created by these subsidies that were approved totally initially by Democrats. Republicans have never voted for these subsidies for Obamacare. So what is the way forward? How do you see this being resolved?
Well, I think we have to grow our numbers. Much of what was touted as the subsidies getting new coverage for people was actually a redefinition pursuant to the Medicaid law that allowed more people to be considered as needy and therefore eligible for Medicaid. So many of those who became now with a health care program, it was through Medicaid, not through Obamacare. But that said, Obamacare advertised that everyone would save, Obama himself said it, $25,000 average cost savings per year, beginning with the first year. When the first year was over, it went up by 25,000. That's 50,000 difference between the two, 5,000, I should say, between the two, and it's gone up ever since. It's the Unaffordable Care Act.
Right.
And so we have to come up with
it needs to be
plan
overhauled.
ourselves.
It has to be overhauled. And I don't think you're not going to be able to do that in a couple of days. I mean, this is going to take some
many
more.
of our Republicans, Tony, like me, we're being picketed. That only makes my resolve more in our districts. I've become stronger rather than less so because they're all for abortion being included in this plan. And again, in my state, you can't get an Obamacare plan that doesn't pay for abortion.
And as you pointed out, the underlying plan doesn't work. It's the Unaffordable Care Act. Congressman Chris Smith, always great to see you. Thank you, my friend, for being such a stalwart for the unborn.
Oh, thank you, Tony. You've been tremendous. You're a force in Washington, that's for sure.
Well, thank you.